Week 4 of all of this theater school stuff, and honestly, it's kind of crazy to me that I've managed to get through a full month here already. It definitely hasn't felt like that much time. I know the old adage is, time flies when you're having fun or whatever, but it really has been enjoyable these past few weeks, and, you take a lot out of it. You take what you can out of it, anyways. Um, so in terms of this week, I enjoyed it. Um, it was kind of a return to form in a lot of ways. Last week we had 2 snow days that really interfered with the general flow and structure of what we were doing, and as a result, it kind of messed things up a lot. Um, and this week we didn't have that. We did have, or at least I had, Monday off because well, I'll get into crews in a bit. But yeah, because of crews, I had them Saturday and Sunday last weekend, so as a result, I got Monday this week off, even though we were behind a bit, but we ended up finishing. Again, we'll get to that in a bit. Um, Going through the general progression of the week, we did something new. We worked on scenes. So during the snow days, we were supposed to have a project that ended up getting not canceled, but changed. The idea behind it is basically you're acting and then suddenly something has to happen. Doesn't say what, you could make your own decisions. Some of us made better decisions than others. Uh, I'm probably not, probably should include that. Anyway, yeah, you were instructed to make your own decisions. Um, and we ended up working through them as individual scenes that got worked throughout the course of the week. Instead of them being something that we just did one day, which has been how most of our other joint classes, wherein both of our acting teachers teach us at the same time, normally when we do those classes, the assignments just vary one and done. You do it and then you're over with it and you don't have to worry about it again. In this case, we worked on it as scenes, and it gave a good indication that both of our teachers have fairly different styles of directing. So one of them encouraged us to be more expressive and to go for bigger things, while the other instead hyperfixated on specificity, trying to make sure that every single action and motivation was fully justifiable and fully supported. It's an interesting dichotomy, seeing both of them working seemingly in contradiction to each other a lot of the times. For instance, one of our teachers told me, use more options, use more tactics, try more things. Whereas the other teacher basically said, yeah, you guys could trim down that dialogue a fair bit. So pretty contradictory. And all of this came to a head when we presented them on Thursday. And I still ended up getting a fairly similar note, that basically being I should try more tactics, but essentially go for them bigger. So try and include more expressiveness and emotion within the piece itself. And I'm not entirely sure how to feel about that. I'm not really the most expressive person in the world, which is probably evident if you've been watching any of these long enough to see how they've been going. Um, it's, again, like a lot of things, it's something I will work on and something I will develop as time goes on. In terms of other big noteworthy things to hit this week, we finished with crews, or at least my crew finished. Yeah, so we were on lights, and it took a while to get done. A lot of light work is essentially just getting up there, hanging lights, focusing them, which basically means directing them where they need to go on stage, and then making sure they have the right look, putting in things like gels or frosts or gobos, which are essentially, the gobos are metal cutouts, sort of like a cookie cutter for a light beam, essentially. Whereas gobos, or not gobos, frosts and gels are essentially plastic sheets that go in front of the light that can change the color, reduce the intensity of the beam, etc., etc. I'm really proud of the work everybody did on that. I've mentioned this before in other videos, but yeah, it was a really well put together team, and everybody did their part. We all contributed, we all did fantastic, and we ended up finishing despite having had 2 less days than we were supposed to. Um, and I'm happy that people were able to do that. Um, Other big things. Well, I guess I haven't had a jazz class in a while. So last week typically we have our jazz classes on Wednesdays, and because, again, snow day, I didn't have one last week. So I think our teacher was trying to compensate for that a little bit and having us rush through some of the jazz routine that she was teaching us. But I can personally say I had a very hard time keeping up with it. If you've ever had a math class before where it feels like they're jumping from one point to another really quickly and you just don't have the time to understand every little detail of every little thing that they're trying to tell you before they move on to the next point, that's pretty much what the class ended up feeling like. And it was more than a little bit discouraging for me. I was definitely getting frustrated with myself for not being able to keep up with it. And I know, you know, obviously it is just, it's new. Of course, I'm not going to be an expert at it. I don't expect that I'm going to be an expert at it. That doesn't mean I'm not going to be frustrated when it doesn't work out the way I'd like it to. Um, Again, just another weakness of mine to shore up, I guess. I seem to have a lot of those, but I think most people do, whether or not they're willing to admit to it being an entirely different factor. So, being open to the idea of changing aspects of myself that I'm not necessarily comfortable with or that I think could be improved, I see it as an overall net positive, but that might just be me. Yeah, I guess trying to condense a week into a couple short words is tricky, to say the least. But if I were going to, it's essentially that I need to consider how it is I want to go about showing myself to the world. Um, like I said, I'm not super expressive, but that is something that I think I need to change. Not necessarily in interpersonal relationships, but definitely as a performer. Because let's be real, nobody's gonna watch something if you're just doing the same monotone every single time. You've got to be willing to change it up and try new things. And that's something that's admittedly been a bigger weakness of mine. I'm solid on technical skills and fundamentals, but the thing that will take me further than ever before with acting and take me to the next step is to stop thinking and just feel and do. Which is a weird note to get because a lot of the time with acting, they tell you don't play the emotion, but I guess they're not necessarily saying don't play the emotion or not to play the emotion, but to rather show the emotion and show how it is affecting me rather than trying to play into an emotion. Um, so that was pretty much the week in brief. Signing off, I guess.